Welcome to Inside PTI, weekly videos designed to get you the trial results you want, agronomy explanations you need, and insights that'll set you up for success on your farm. Today we're going to talk about some of the closing systems trials we have at the PTI farm. And with me is our furrow force unit. This is a two-stage closing system that we've been using here at the PTI farm for 2 years. This just became commercially available at Precision Planting within the last year. But this has allowed us to really do a nice job of closing. And when we think of a closing system, really all we're asking it to do is two things. Number one, we want this first stage to lift and fracture the sidewalls that we're making. So our openers come in and make that true V. Those are the sidewalls, and if we've got some moisture, that can be a compaction layer. So this first stage is going to blow those sidewalls out, lift and fracture and remove it. This second stage system is designed to stitch the soil together and push the air pocket out. But what's that look like? So if we get this wrong, this is what happens in the bottom of the furrow. We've got a seed, the bottom of the true V, and there's air. We haven't closed this, and there's all air here. And that seed, we've got an embryo that's supposed to imbibe water to get it to germinate, but it's not attached to water, it's attached to air. And so now it will eventually germinate, but it's going to take rainfall coming through this soil profile to collapse this air pocket, and then the embryo is next to moisture and it will germ. But the problem with this is, by the time all that happens, we end up with a late emerger. And so this is the plant that had the air pocket. It just comes up out of the ground and it sees two big brothers on both sides of it. And this is going to result in what I call a straggler. It's going to be a plant that may not have an ear at all, or it's going to be a much smaller ear compared to these guys that came up at the same time. So when we talk first stage of our closing system with furrow force, we talked about lifting and fracturing the sidewalls. This is those sidewalls I was referring to. This is what our disc openers make on the planter. Making that true V, we plant the seed in the bottom of that V. But what we want to do is we want to blow that sidewall out to make it look like we were never ever there for good seed to soil contact. If we leave this there, that's a soil density issue, compaction that seed and that seedling root is going to have to combat. So we want to lift this, fracture it, drop it back down to eliminate any compaction issues that we may have in the true V. So for our closing wheel system study this year at PTI, we're comparing some popular wheels that a lot of growers are using across the country in comparison to furrow force. And these are the wheels that we're using. We run dual Martin dimples. It's a heavy, aggressive type wheel. Then we bring in a cast finger wheel along with a traditional rubber OEM wheel. We've got some dual Yetter poly twisters out here. We take one of the Yetter poly twisters and combine it with one rubber. But we compare all of these to furrow force, okay? And we want to see some differences in the field. And to do this comparison, we're doing flag testing. So imagine this. So we go out and we plant with all these different closing wheels, and we wait for the corn to come up. We see that first seedling that's just popping up out of the ground. We flag it. And what we did this year was really interesting, and we've just got this data put together, and we've been sharing it with growers here at the PTI farm all summer. But we're monitoring how long it's taking to get full emergence from these closing wheel systems. And we start at 12 hours. When you think about what are you willing to sacrifice on your farm, once that first corn seedling comes up, when should the rest of them all be up out of the ground? And we're monitoring them at 12 hours to begin with. And I would say, if you could get all your corn to come up with in 12 hours, that is exceptional. That is fantastic, giving every corn seedling the same chance to throw the perfect uniform ear, okay? Again, as it comes up later, we're gonna have this uneven emergence, and we'll get a guy that's just too far behind, and he's gonna be competition. So we start off monitoring at 12 hours, then we go to 24 hours, so 12 hours later, everything's in 12-hour increments, 36 hours, 48, and then we just classify the last one as anything over 48 hours. But the data turned out really interesting this year, and I've really never monitored it down to 12 hours before, but here's what we found. So here's 4-mile-an-hour planting speeds. All the others did fairly well. They were all over 90%. Again, within 12 hours, and that's pretty good. The problem is we don't have a whole lot of people planting 4 mile an hour. A lot of folks maybe may speed up a little bit, so let's go to 6 mile an hour, and let's take a look at the data at 6 mile an hour, and this is where the data starts to change. Here we've got furrow force, 92% of all the plants up within 12 hours. The rest of the closing wheel systems fall under 80%. So now let's go to 8 mile an hour. I think this is a really nice speed. A lot of growers are planting that nowadays. And again, the data set looks amazing for furrow force because now we're at 93% of all the plants up within 12 hours. It's just fantastic. Some of these other wheels are not performing very well. We're even dropping into the 60% range with some of these other wheels. Everything I'm showing you up to this point was planting depths of 2 inches. And I like to plant corn a lot of times at 2 inches as long as I've got adequate moisture. But one of the things we worry about with closing wheels is maybe some of them are aggressive. They've got those fingers on them. And if we don't have the right planting depth, sometimes we worry about those spoke or spike type wheels moving seed. So something interesting happened. You know, everything I've showed you is a 2-inch planting depth. We actually shallowed up and went to 1.5 inches, and here's what happened. Again, 10 mile an hour speeds. Furrow force comes in, some of the highest percentages we've got yet, 96% of all the plants up within 12 hours, but some of these other wheels are failing miserably. We've got one of them here in only the 40% range of those plants up within 12 hours. Again, a lot of later emergers, but it just goes to show you that yes, you know, you look at furrow force, and I get guys that say, well, maybe that's an aggressive system, it's moving too much dirt, maybe we're moving seed. It's just the opposite. We're not moving seed, we're not moving it at all, and we're lifting, fracturing, we're pushing the air pocket out, giving that seed the best chance to come up quickly and all the same in the row. These other wheels, there's some confusion happening. We're moving some seed, we're getting late emergers, and that's why we've been struggling with closing systems in the past. So if we average, I guess, the performance scores of all of the closing systems we looked at, furrow force comes in at 93% of all those plants coming up within 12 hours. All the other closing systems never hit 80%. So today's InsidePTI agronomy tip of the day is even emergence gives us the ability or the opportunity for our highest optimum yields. We talked about stragglers during the video today, those guys that come up late, and we have these ears that are smaller in size, and that's what's decreasing yield. A good closing system, okay? A system that can give us even emergence within the 12 hours that I showed you the data on today. That's gonna give us the best chance for highest yield. So as you're going through harvest, I know harvest is coming upon us quickly here, as you're doing yield checks, look at ear count in the field. Find those plants that may have some of these smaller ears and try to figure out, was this a problem at closing? And if it is, we can go to that planter and we can fine tune the planter, get the right closing system on it, and we can do a better job. So if you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, you can reach out to any Precision Planting Premier dealer, or you can go to our website at precisionplanting.com. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you on the next episode of Inside PTI. In the meantime, thanks for watching.